Coming up next on the Conscious Courage podcast. Do you have property managers or anything for your properties?
For my Birmingham properties, when I first started out, I do. Overall, I would say they're okay. Now, I will admit, I'm gonna say it out loud. I do think that they are not being honest brokers with me. I'll just say that.
Good morning. Welcome to the Conscious Courage podcast and sing it with me. Happy Motivational Monday. I am your host, Davone'a Tashae. I meet with you all every Monday at 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time to provide practical steps toward our inner healing journey, or what I've coined internal glow up. Whether you're here as a first-time listener or returning, thank you for tuning in. The team and I are grateful to every subscriber via YouTube and every listener via Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. With a special shout out to all of our IGU babes keeping up with us on social media on all platforms at CC Podcast with DT. Y'all are locked in and we are too hyped to have you here, all right? Now, ensure to listen on through so you can receive those practical steps as well as any announcements that we may have. Let's dive on into today's episode. Good morning, good morning, good morning. I am your host, Davone'a Tashae of the Conscious Courage podcast, where I bring you new content every single Monday focused on your mental and emotional well-being, our internal glow up, resilience, everything positive, right? But for the month of October, we are focused on building wealth in real estate. Really not thing to do with the emotional and mental health, but it'll still feed your mental and your emotional health. But before I get carried away, let me introduce to you our guest today. Meet Mr. Joe Moody, an electrical engineer turned seasoned real estate investor specializing in the BRRRR method. That is when you buy a home, you rehab that home, you rent it out, you refinance it, and then you repeat. Joe embarked on his real estate journey in 2022 with the acquisition of 3 rental properties in Birmingham, Alabama. Recognizing the need for deeper real estate knowledge, he joined a top-tier investor mastermind course in February of 2023. Since then, he has successfully executed the BRRRR strategies on multiple properties, demonstrating his proficiency and expertise in real estate investing. Joe's journey is a testament to the power of strategic investment and financial freedom through real estate. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Joe Moody.
Good morning. Good morning. How you doing, Davone'a? This is certainly good. I'm glad to be here. Excited to talk to you about the BRRRR strategy. I think it's a great deal to use for folks that's trying to scale their real estate portfolio for sure.
Yes, yes. Now, before we get into all things real estate, I want to take time to provide a stat as it pertains to your profession. So, one, I need to applaud you for the esteemed accomplishment in working as an electrical engineer and share that quick stat with our viewers and listeners. So, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, and reports from the National Society of Black Engineers, the percentage of Black engineers in the U.S. is around 5%, with an even smaller percentage being Black males, specifically in electrical engineering. These precise statistics for Black males in electrical engineering are not always available, but generally it's estimated that they make up less than 2% of the total electrical engineering workforce in the United States. And this information was pulled from around 2022 and 2023 from both the U.S. Bureau of Investigations and the National Society of Black Engineers. So again, a round of applause, okay? You top tier. Yes, yes.
That sounds really, I tell you what, I was not tracking that. That's really amazing to understand the numbers are so low for Black men in engineering. I suspect it's even worse for Black females. And so that's really amazing. I just want to look back over my career. In retrospect, I did not see that many Black engineers. Even today, I don't see that many Black engineers. I would imagine that they're in school, but I just don't see them. So that stat really rings it resonates with me because in fact, over the years, most of the time, I've been the only black engineer in a lot of rooms, and that's to include both government and industry, right? So
Mhm.
it's really kind of, in a way, it's kind of sad. You would hope those numbers will grow, and maybe they are starting to grow. And
Mhm.
maybe I need to take it upon myself to do more outreach, right? To reach out to those young folks that's still in high school and middle school and talk to them, show them, hey, that there are opportunities in engineering. So
Yes. And you can start right here on the Conscious Courage podcast.
there you go. Today is a good day to start. Yes,
Today
indeed.
is a good day to start. So,
Yeah.
we'll get to our first question is can you share a little bit of your journey from electrical engineering into real estate investing and why you choose the BRRRR method?
Right. So as it turns out, I'm nearing retirement, and I've done a small survey on folks that have retired,
Mhm.
and they seem like they need something to do in retirement. That's one, right? And it all talk about this so-called fixed income.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't want to. I don't want to live on a fixed income. Okay, what are you talking about? And so that's one. But what kind of drove me to that was that, and maybe we can talk about the mental aspect of it. So for years, my wife, she dealt with, even now deals with depression and
Mm.
anxiety, right? And so one way to deal with depression was to spend buy things, and that was
Okay.
almost like a way for her to
Her
get
coping mechanism.
coping mechanism. Yeah. And so I said, "Oh my goodness." And so you do that for a long span of time, you realize you don't have enough money saved up, right? And so it took me, I don't know, it took us probably 20 years into our marriage before I realized, hey, what is this? How to deal
Mhm.
with it, whatnot. And sadly, as you may realize, in the black community, we're not big on getting counseling, that type of thing. So we finally got that, but even then it took a little while to kind of get to the right level and understanding and whatnot. So, but by then a lot of damage had been done. And so a few years ago, I went to my financial uh, counselor. He said, "Hey, you don't have enough money now." So I said, "Oh my goodness, so I got to do something, right? I can't
Mhm.
wait till to the end." So that's what kind of really led me into real estate investing. And then now to that point, my initial thought was maybe I can do something to reduce my taxes. So initially, my plan was to look at, hey, what can I do to minimize my taxes, and
Mhm.
kind of use that as a way to kind of build income. But in the end, it kind of led me into real estate investing. So that's how I got here in that indirect way, right? And then in retrospect, I really do think was God leading me, right? God kind of forcing this on me, forcing me to reach this conclusion. So I
Mhm.
really think it was divinely led. Now, having said that, I didn't care for the pain for me to get here,
Yeah.
but in the end, I'm here, right? And if and so you think about it, if I had written a script, it would have been totally different. I would have had tons of money just from being an engineer.
Yes.
But but because my wife had that, and I was, and and it took me so long because I think she was telling me what was going on, but I was not hearing what was being stated, right?
Mm.
So I think all that kind of led me to this point. So in the end, it was a blessing. Yeah, that's
Yes.
the way I see it. Yeah.
It all came well, I won't say came to fruition, but it was like all for something greater. When we're going through a trial, it doesn't feel good as we're going through it, but as we make it out, like the Israelites, once they make it out through the wilderness, there's greater on the other side. But you have to go through that path right there. You got to
Right,
go through this part.
right. All things work together for good, right? So here I
Yes.
am, and
For the
so
good of those that love the Lord and are called
look at
according to his
you.
purpose.
Look at you. Yes,
Okay.
indeed. Yeah. So yeah. So with that being the case,
Mhm.
it led me here. It led me to to our training and whatnot, and so it worked out. In fact, it's interesting when I jumped out there on those first three properties in Birmingham. I didn't know anything,
Yeah.
and so hard knocks is one way to learn, but it's better to to be trained as well, right? So that really helped expedite my thought process, and it gave me more of a narrow focus on how
Mm.
to execute at a higher level
That's
and the
so good.
confidence to do so. Yeah.
Doing it scared.
Doing
as Coach
scary.
would say.
Yes, doing scary. Hey, you know what? But you don't want to do a scare too long, right?
Right.
So I think, but I did do a scare initially, and I mean, I didn't know anything. I mean, I couldn't even apply common sense. It was just like,
Mm.
what's going on? And so, but so that led us to coach, and I think that's it's worked out. It's paid off in a great way.
That's good. Well, one, thank you for your vulnerability and sharing your personal testament and your story and what led you to now being a real estate investor. Can you share with us what exactly is the BRRRR method
Right. So
and
as you
how did
stated,
oh, excuse me.
yeah. So as you stated earlier, it's this buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and then just do it all over again by repeating. Right. So the first thing is buy. Right.
Yes.
And as you well know, you got to buy right up front. And 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 so as it turns out, right now I'm buying mostly C type properties.
Mm.
Section 8 is what I ideally prefer to do because it's guaranteed money every month. It's just awesome how that works. So buying right sometimes, and so the issue with buying in a C class, unlike an A and B class, the properties tend to be a bit more older,
Mhm.
right? And so you got to find something uh, when you complete the rehab where it's able to comp out at the level that you need for it to be when you do the back end and do the right refinance.
Mhm.
So that's always kind of tough, and so you got to really kind of scour through the properties. I typically try to buy in a certain zip code, right? So it's when it's to optimize. So I'm trying to optimize rent and as well, right? So and I try to stay within that, I guess that bubble. Right now I'm purchasing homes in the St. Louis area.
Okay.
And there's a certain zip code that I like up there. And so I try to buy in that zip code. Now sometimes I venture out, but that zip code offers is usually pretty good for like the crime is not that bad,
Okay.
right? You get homes that comp out okay, because you when I in the end when I refinance, I want to have you know let's say 30% or more equity already built in, right? I want to make sure
Mhm.
it's good because when you buy, you also got to think about the end in mind, right? So when I sell, for example, most likely it's going to be another investor that would purchase this home.
Mhm.
You know what? He's probably want the same good deal that I got, right?
Right.
And so with that in mind, I want to make sure I have enough equity built into it so when I sell, yeah, it works out great. I don't lose anything, and they get a good deal, and I get a good deal. So that's to me is very important to make sure you buy, and also with Section 8 properties,
Mhm.
unlike Class A and Class B properties, Section 8 it appreciates,
Mhm.
but it does not appreciate at the same rate,
Oh,
for
I didn't know
example,
that.
as a Class A and Class B type property, right? So you got to make sure you take that into consideration when you purchase these properties, particularly for Section 8 and our class. I just call it Class C
Okay.
properties. So
Now you went into the buy and you didn't touch on like the rehab. So what have you learned there? I know you said you went out there and you learned like on the job training, but what are
yeah.
some nuggets that you would give to someone as they explore rehabbing?
So as part of your due diligence before you purchase the property, right? What you want to know how much is this thing going to cost to
Mm.
rehab, and to make sure to still make sure you're going to be still have your equity because you in the end you want to make sure you have built-in equity, and so that's always difficult, right? Some of these homes are now, but having said that, I do like to buy homes that are uh, fairly distressed,
Oh,
right?
okay.
They're fairly distressed, but not so bad. Not it's always this balancing act, right? Because you want to buy homes that's distressed, but not where everything in the neighborhood is distressed.
Mm,
We still want to, say someone's already kind of gone in and done this before in that area. Because in the end, you still need a tenant to be able to, or at least have a desire to
com-
be a tenant in your property, right? So
yes.
So rehab, even when the rehab is done, you still want to make sure it ideally have 30% equity because built in, right? And it and you want to make sure there's enough fluff in the event that something that was unforeseen in their estimate comes up.
That's good.
You have built-in equity. So I'm really big on the rehab costs. In fact, that's where it's probably really critical that you trust your contractor, right? Is this bid, is it really a good bid?
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, there was one property I was looking at, and one contractor gave me one bid, and another gave me, it was the delta was so large to where I was like, oh my goodness, this seems like maybe I don't want to deal with this property because it's such a large disparity in the numbers. I just didn't trust it anymore, right? So because it's not always good to go with the cheapest person, right? You still want to make sure you go with somebody that know what they're doing, right? So
Yes.
so that was one property I passed on. And but to that point, you build a rapport with your contractor. And at some point you start to trust him, right? At some point you start to say, I like this guy. He knows what he's doing. We've done business in the past, and and their bid is pretty good. So to me, once you part of buying right is making sure your rehab cost is going to be within the meet the equity, right? When you go
Okay.
to the bank. Right. So then you got to rent it out. So the key in rent. For me, what I usually do is I use the small market rent at HUD. Right. In other words, I go to the zip code.
Mm.
I am buying zip code specific properties.
Okay.
Every zip code comes with a certain rent, right? And also it almost kind of tells you a story when you start to compare zip code to zip codes. Zip code maybe has a lower rent amount.
Mm-hmm.
It could also indicate, hey, this is a higher crime area.
Oh.
This is an area that, hey, that's not desirable, for example,
Mhm.
right? I kind of compare the zip codes against each other and determine what zip code that's going to be the best value, and it has some sort of built-in safety factor as well, right? So that's kind of what I. So then you look at now. Keep in mind when you look at the rent on those zip codes, particularly for HUD,
Mhm.
you got to take into account. Let's say, for example, the rent says $1,000,
Okay.
right? Well, you got to take into account that part of at least for Section 8, you got to take into account that, hey, some of that money is going to be used towards utilities, right? Water and that type of thing, right? So you can't expect to get that $1,000. It may be $800 that you actually get as a landlord when you
Okay.
do all the math, right? So when you run your numbers, you got to have that in mind. And when I say run your numbers, the numbers that you need to determine what's going to be your net operating income, right?
Okay.
And so you gotta be aware of that. Otherwise, you may come back with a false indication that this is a great property. So, and also, I guess the other thing is part of your process when now you talk about right now it's time to refinance.
Yes.
And so the refinance part is when you put a debt on this property, and that's the other, I think, very important piece of the puzzle as well. Is can this property sustain debt and still cash flow? Now
Mm.
that's assuming cash flow is your thing,
Right.
right? Now on a class A or class B property, you may not care as much
Mm.
because appreciation is king in those, and you can't really beat appreciation. I would definitely, in fact, at some point down the road, I would start to invest more in the class A and class B property.
Okay.
But right now, I want to build a base. Right, I'm trying to get a base. Let's say 20, 30, get $1,000 a month. Trying to build a base, and so the big thing with that is part of refinance. You want to make sure can this property can sustain a debt, and
Mhm.
so and so to know that you got to have a good idea of what you think it would rent out as, right? Your monthly rent. So that's very key. And if you mess that up, you may find yourself upside down. So it's so you got to be able to take what you believe to be the rent, and sometimes it just comes with just doing it over and over again, right? Knowing
Okay.
what you can expect from the rent. And that's why I try to find the optimum zip codes because I'm trying to optimize my rent, right? If I spend $100,000 on one house
Mm-hmm.
and the rent is higher in a different zip code, I'd rather buy and purchase in that zip code if all things are equal, right? So that's why I'm very big on zip codes. That's why I'm very big on when I look at the fair market rent is using a small area rent for these zip codes to help me better optimize my returns.
Ad break. Are you seeking an electrifying speaker to ignite transformation in your audience? Well, look no further. Hi, I'm Davone'a Tashae, real estate investor, Air Force veteran, and host of the Conscious Courage podcast, where new episodes are released every Monday, 6 a.m. Eastern Standard Time via YouTube and all streaming audio platforms. I specialize in delivering impactful keynote speeches that inspire change and elevate your minds. Whether it's a virtual gathering or an in person event, I bring passion, expertise, and a unique delivery to every arena or every environment that I'm in. Let's captivate your audience together and create an unforgettable experience. Contact me today to book your next event and let's embark on this journey of transformation, or let's get all of your attendees on this journey toward internal glow up. You can book me via my website by going to www.davoneatashae.com. I'll spell that for you. It is www.DAV as in Victor, ONEATASHAE.com. I look forward to connecting with you. Take care. Now, when you say refinance, because that was a lot of great nuggets, but for a person who may not have the education, when you say refinance, that's a cash out refinance. Look, I'm
That's
also
okay.
so
Yes. Look at you. Yeah. So right. So let's talk about that a little bit. So
yeah.
that is a cash out refinance.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about the BRRRR method is that you want to be able to put your money into some property
Mm-hmm.
and get as much money back as you can, right? Because in the end, you want to be able to keep reusing that same money. That
Mm-hmm.
is the magic of the BRRRR method, right? And that's why for me, I love it because it allows me to scale. I can just keep reusing that same money over and over again.
Yeah.
And it should almost be illegal to be able to buy property in this way, right? Because
Yes.
there's no limits when you think about it from that perspective, right?
Mm.
And so what I've done, I've taken a HELOC on my home, and so I just use
What's
that
a
as my
HELOC? Look, what's a
uh,
HELOC?
so it's basically a home equity line of credit, right?
Yes.
Is where you just I've been in my home, I guess let's say 20 years
Okay.
in Huntsville. So you think about it. So over the years, my equity in my home is skyrocketed. I said, oh my goodness, there's just money sitting here, and what you don't want you don't want lazy money.
Your money have to go and be little soldiers, or what does Coach say? Make little babies. Money babies.
Yeah. I want my money to make a baby. So my money is locked up in my home. I said, hey, money, go to work, right?
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing. So, but having said that, because it is a HELOC, it is
Mm-hmm.
on my property.
Mm.
I want to make sure I buy right, okay? Because my house is tied to that. So for me, it's just an extra layer of scrutiny that I go through to make sure, hey, I make sure I'm good in that regard, right?
Could we say HELOC is like you're almost like you're using your house as collateral to
Correct.
borrow? Okay, just to
Correct.
like paint a picture. But then when you
Yeah.
go out and you do your refinance, that's not like taking, no, that's borrowing from the house. I mean, yeah, I think you're borrowing from the house.
Yeah. So now I'm using my rental property as the lien holder, so to speak, and I get
Okay.
my money back. Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
But having said that, typically banks are doing a loan to value 80%. So that's why you want to make sure you have a lot of built-in equity in your home when it's time to refinance. And so, because I want all my money back as much as possible. Now, having said that, sometimes I may leave some in based upon it. All depends on how much I want to cash flow. And in these areas of
okay.
what I'm buying right now is pretty good. So I usually get most of my money back, if not all,
That's great.
and just keep it moving.
Now, do you have property managers or anything for your properties?
Wow. So that's a great question. So for my Birmingham properties, when I first started out, I do. Overall, I would say they're okay. Now I
Okay.
will admit, I'm gonna say it out loud. I do think that they are not being honest brokers with me. I'll just say that,
Mm,
right? I don't know. It just seems very odd with some of the things I'm paying for. But
yeah.
so we'll see.
Okay.
We'll give it another year or so. If I could continue to see these oddities, I may just need to let them go. The properties I have in St. Louis, well, now those like I said, those have come since my training. I'm thinking more about legacy now, right? So
Okay.
I am the manager for those homes now.
Good.
The deal is the my so me and my daughter, right? So we're doing those.
Go
And so
ahead.
the deal is I'm trying to just plant the seed. I'm trying to plant that seed of what it is to be a real estate investor and to pass on the legacy piece of it as well, right? And so that's kind of the thought process at the moment because I need for them to understand, hey, what it is to be a real estate investor and kind of go through the process, right? Even
Yeah.
now, I'm still going through the process as I vet tenants, understand that these tenants are, for the most part, I like the tenants, but you got to still got to deal with them, right? You got to
Yeah.
interact with them in the sense of, what do they want and realize that dynamic of, for example, they may change their phone number
Oh,
as an example. I'm not used to that. When I grew up, folks had the same number,
yes.
right? But these folks, they'll change the number in a minute. You say, oh my goodness, what is that? What are you doing? It's just something that it's no big deal for them, right? So for me, it's something different, something to get accustomed to and just understand it just how it is sometimes, right? So just
Yes.
dealing with that type of thing, you just need to have awareness of that. You're here to meet a need, you're here to solve some problem, and that's what I want to do. So, and I think it's what I'm doing.
I would say that you are. Can we talk about finding the 10, like taking the emotion part out of it? So being able to make a logical decision. And no way ever can anyone discriminate against the tenant, but there are some qualifications that a person has to meet. And so have you been in a, well, I'll put myself out there, then I'll ask you. There was a time in which I need to rent out my property. A woman came to me. Unfortunately, I wanted as a single mother, well, she was a single mother. I wanted to rent the place out. The unfortunate part is after looking at her referral, she had been delinquent in a couple of her rental payments. And so I was like, well, that doesn't show a good payment history. And if I'm moving out of state and I'm not going to be right here, I need to know that this home, the person has the finances to keep up if anything comes up, or at least to pay the rent at minimum. And then I'll cover everything else. And so I had to remove the part of she's a single mom and I want to make sure she has a place to stay in order to ensure there was a good foundation there that
Right.
she could make her payment. So have you had any of those experiences? If not, then we'll push on to the next question
Well, I tell you what, that's
or
pretty too.
advice.
So to your point, you got to take the emotion out of it
Mhm.
as much as you can,
Yeah.
as much as you can. However, and so I'll just say that's why I really do like Section 8.
Mm.
The money shows up every month.
No, okay.
I'm not begging for money. I'm not, you know.
Yeah.
So, however, there could be tenants that are not on Section 8.
Mm.
So, having said that, I have not crossed that bridge. I have spoken to folks that you do hear sobs. I would call them maybe not sob stories. You do hear these stories where they were in scenarios like you just stated, right? Where they
Mhm.
missed some payments, and I said, well, what made you miss the payment, right? And some they
Mm.
were in the process of getting a divorce, they were doing a job transition, that type of thing, and so I thought, okay, well, maybe I might consider someone like that
Okay.
if I had no other options,
Mm. You're a
So
contender.
yeah. I'll put you in the top 3, but we'll see how it plays out, right? So,
Yes.
and I try to pray about it and whatnot. In fact, I just had a person that I really was I thought I was going to rent this last property to,
Mhm.
and oh my goodness, she sounded good. Did a little background check on her, and she was calling me just, hey, it's just not all, just occasionally make sure the property was ready. But then when it came time to say I think it's ready, I couldn't reach her.
Mm.
And I thought, man, you were calling me off the chain a few months ago, a few weeks ago, and now I can't reach you. And I was like, well, this is crazy. Now,
Yeah.
having said that, she did change her number and all that, but I didn't feel good about her anymore. Right. So now I'm in the process of doing a tenant viewing, I guess, in the next week or two.
Okay.
And so we'll see how that goes. You know, so in the end, I think all things work together. Like I said, all things work together for good, right? So it was great that
Yeah.
maybe I did not sign her. I saw some interesting. I did see some maybe some red flags
Mm-hmm.
because she was always calling back, just checking on the property and whatnot. I said, man, she sounds really good.
Yeah. She's
And
on
so
top.
so to your point, I did allow emotions to play in
Mm.
that regard, right? I will say that. And so back to your original point, you just, let the numbers speak for themselves, right? And there again, bad credit, it's not that bad for me. If it's particularly if you're Section 8, if you're just a straight renter, I do want to, I do scrutinize you more. On Section 8, all I really care about is what type of person you are, right?
Mm.
Most of these folks are very, at least the ones I've dealt with thus far, they are very conscious where they live at.
Okay.
They have pride in where they stay at. Right? So I really do appreciate that.
Yes.
That's really what I'm looking for. Someone that takes pride in where they. Now, I haven't said that. There's pros and cons to that, right? Because they'll call, hey, some XYZ is messed up. So really, you care about that? And so, I mean,
Yeah.
but
They take pride. Okay.
yeah, taking pride. So
Come and fix this light switch now. Like,
yeah, buddy. Yeah, so that type of thing, it's okay, I got you. But I appreciate that in the end. I appreciate it. Right. And so,
yes. That's good. Thank you for that. Well, you went through the questions and then some. So the last little nugget before we are to disconnect is this is the Conscious Courage podcast. You have spoke about prayer and faith and your awareness, but some inquiring minds would like to know, and I'm probably the inquiring mind. How do you integrate your conscious decision making and ethical considerations into your real estate investment practices or your everyday life? That's a mouthful.
wow, that's a lot to chew on. So
Mhm.
so like for example,
We'll
I
take a
spoke
break. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, so one of
Time
the
out,
things I,
coach.
I I think about is like when I buy a property, for example, in a fairly safe neighborhood.
Mm,
And so, as it turns out, particularly for Section 8, I'm usually renting to, at least thus far, it's been single females
okay.
with children. And so I want them to be in a fairly safe neighborhood, if at
Mhm.
all possible, right? It makes no sense for me to buy something in a crime-ridden area unless you can buy the entire block.
Mm.
I'm not buying an entire block at the moment.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I'm really conscious about that. I'm also very conscious about not being greedy.
Mm.
Might have heard it in our trainings that, hey, you can't get rich overnight doing this, right? So I try to make sure the rents are fair, reasonable,
Yeah.
both sides, and so in fact, I've had some philosophical discussions with folks in the circle on should I did I they say I should increase rent every year, and that could be right. I don't know.
Mhm.
I just don't feel the need to do that. Maybe I increase it every so often, but not for me, not every year, right?
Yeah.
Um, but that's just my thought. I'm not saying, by no means am I saying that's the right thing to do because we are in business, right? But
Mhm.
I think it's in my mind, I want to meet the needs of the tenant, and I want them to stay
Yes.
long term tenants, right? So to me now, I'm very conscious about that. I'm also very conscious about not being a slumlord, and so sadly, it seems to me that most of these tenants they are not used to someone responding to their needs,
Mm.
and so if they have an issue, don't hesitate. I mean, don't hesitate. Give me a call, let me know, and I want to get right on it. So I want to have this rapport with them that hey, I'm here for them as well, right?
Yes.
Just to me, it's just not about just me making money from them. It's about having this rapport, this relationship, and recognizing, realizing that they can reach out to me, and I'm here to as best I can meet their needs and expectations. And so, to me, that's what it's all about. So,
That's great.
and one thing I like to do is also maybe send them a little nugget throughout the year, send them a little something. Hey, I care about
Mm.
you. Send them a little something, and in fact, my wife she's cautious about that because she thinks if I send them too much, I may seem weak. I don't know, but I think the weak landlord. But
We ain't paying rent. No.
right, right. Right. So, but for me, it's about relationships. It's
Yes, bring it a long way.
maybe that's soft. I don't know. I think I told you before. I grew up in a single parent household, so maybe that's my weakness.
Mhm.
I just think,
It's your superpower.
look at you.
There
So,
it is,
yeah,
okay?
yeah,
It's your strength, and
come
that's why the tenants will stay there, and that's why they will pay their rent, and that's
on
why they
time.
will reach out, okay, on time because
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
taken care of.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my thoughts in trying to be ethical and doing
Yeah.
the right thing. And I tell you what, sometimes it's tough doing the right thing, right? It's tough. You got to have a made up mind to do what's right. And I think in
Mhm.
the end it'll pay off, right? So I think sometimes we don't think about the we want somebody to do that to us,
Yeah.
right? And so a lot of times these folks are in, I would call them vulnerable situations, and when they need help, they need help. In fact, my tenant, one of my tenants, she locked herself outside a house a few weeks ago. I said,
Mhm.
"What are you doing?"
Right.
And I felt so bad, and she called me. I didn't answer the phone call. I just didn't have my phone with me. And anyway, she broke into the house, I guess, right?
Uh-huh.
And I said, but then I realized, oh my goodness, I don't have spare keys. And so,
Mm,
that taught me a lesson. Hey, make sure I have spare keys. Make things like that, right? Because I
yeah.
was not expecting for her to anybody to just to lock themselves out, right? So, and I will admit, I was hurt because I was. I mean, she locked herself out, but she was out with her small. She just had a small baby as well, right? So
Mm.
it was not the best scenario, and she didn't have a. I think her phone was going dead. All it
Oh,
was
there's a
just
lot happening.
there was a lot going on in her life, and I said, oh my goodness. So anyway, if your mind is to do the right thing, it would pay off for you in the end.
Yes. Amen to that. Any parting words? Because I'm done with my questions.
Well, look. Here's the BRRRR strategy. I think it's a great strategy for folks that want to scale. I think, as I've been told, real estate is a contact sport.
Mhm.
Sometimes you got to get out there and engage the process and not give up. It's gonna get tough, but I think if you stick to it, I think it's very rewarding. For me, I'm just building this bridge to retirement, and I think it'd be awesome once I do decide to retire in the next few years. Bring my daughter into the process and
Yes.
start this legacy investing.
Yes. Well, thank you for your time, your wisdom. Congratulations on all that you've accomplished and that you will continue to accomplish. And that's it, y'all. So stay tuned, y'all, for some additional information. We have BRRRR with Mr. Joe Moody. We have Fix and Flips. We have broker conversations. We have just stick around, okay? So you can see what else we have. Until next time, y'all take care and be blessed. Disclaimer: as a content creator with a background in psychology and ongoing studies, it's imperative that I note and clarify that I am not a licensed professional. The videos and podcasts I produce are intended for educational, entertainment, and transformational purposes only. While I strive to provide accurate information and insights, it's essential to consult with a licensed mental health clinician or a licensed mental health professional for clinical perspectives and personalized advice tailored to your specific needs. Your mental well being is of the utmost importance to me, and seeking guidance from a qualified provider is encouraged for any concerns or issues that you may be experiencing.